This is my story, episode 2, which, let's say, I'll call this story in the beginning, although my story, episode 2, was the really beginning of my story, which really should be called Your Story, with an emphasis on Oh, you are our story. So, what is the story? In the beginning there was, well, in the beginning of my story, we'd already talked about it, 2005. But that was the beginning of a bigger story in my mind, because I believed back then, I became of the belief that from the beginning of time, we were designed. Well, what is the beginning of time? I believe the beginning of time was the beginning of intelligent man, not necessarily of Neanderthal, but when man started communicating with fellow man and creating a common intelligence together, which probably died towards our invention of languages. And so that's in the few thousand years periods, not the millions. So if you wanted to argue intelligent design and argue evolution, well, the important time frame is when we became intelligent, and that we weren't designed to be intelligent. And that is the point of my story. I believe that the story that we were left with is biblical, and not just one Bible, all of the Bibles, but that it tied to the beginning of this beginning. Well, you could call it Adam and Eve or whatever, but the point is this: it tied us to the time of 2000. It tied us to the dawn of the information age. It tied us to a time where our world would change, and our connections would change, and our Babel towers would fall down. And it tied us to a time with the power to both destroy ourselves and the power to save ourselves. And it tied us to a time of arrival, and it gave us the technologies to reinvent our entire planet. And then, well, we've always had all the lessons and all the knowledge of how to be a great human on our planet. And well, this is both the future, but the future isn't one that ignores the past, but embraces the past and leverages the past and leverages all of the assets that we have on Earth. Because if we organize our assets better, we can create a prosperous planet for all humanity. And that really gets to the point. So, after in the beginning was with Citizen Cain killed Citizen Abel, and that ties to common times. We're always killing our heroes. We always kill our heroes. Why? I don't know. Because they're not our heroes? Because they do wrong? And then why would we put our heroes' crimes on our TVs and bring down the values of our brand? Well, we have no ownership in their brand. We like bringing their brand down and watching it fall. I don't know why. We make money in our TV shows, that's why. But we lose money in other brands, who cares? But that's not really the point. Because when Citizen Cain killed Citizen Abel in modern times is when the Gates killed the Jobs. That's right. Bill Gates killed the Jobs when they killed the computer. Well, and even the Apple is not the computer of the future, but it's the best thing you have. Now, as weird as it gets, in my reality since 2005, Steve Jobs has been architecting a new world order for you, and has been leading with other leaders a buyout of the planet. And in my reality, Steve Jobs is really alive. Now, let's not get off on the tangents, but this gets off on the tangents of the bigger reality. Because once you have a plan with insider information of unworldly proportions, and you publish that plan, and tell the DOJ and the antitrust that you're going to buy out the world privately, and that you're publicly announcing it, but nobody has to take you seriously. But because you announced it, hey, you could do it, and so, but you're not really doing it yourself. You're doing it with a board of angels, with a million angels all over the world, buying each other out together, merging their interest into this new world order. So, anyway, because why would they do that? Well, because they realize that we can create a better power structure together, a power structure of a power enterprise, an enlightened capitalist enterprise that goes beyond what any enterprise has gone before. It becomes a global enterprise of all of the people of the planet. And we disintermediate corruption and politics of nations and create justice and peace on earth, because to pay for all of this we must create justice and peace on earth. But if we create this new enterprise and tie it to a new monetary system of virtual rainbow stars, of monetary money that ties to intelligent minds, because from infinite minds comes infinite value, and from infinite value comes infinite money. But the point is more like this, is we have problems. You have problems that are coming to the fore. You didn't know in 2005 they were coming. I saw them coming. You have a long-term structural job problem in all of your developed nations. Well, and all of your nations too. Because, well, we're getting more and more efficient, and eventually we're going to get robots. And then what do? When, well, nobody has jobs, and well, nobody can afford the robots, that's another point. But anyway, and then we have these unstable monetary systems backed by nations of debt, and wars of nations with trades, and you're only beginning to see what would happen if we had a real trade war, because that would lead to World War III. Not to even mention the possibility of World War III because of our religious differences and our differences between, well, you know, the terrorists and whatnot. But the point is this: in this new world order, there would be no terrorists. We would bring Al-Qaeda to their knees, and they would be retired to a desert island if necessary. But I think we would bring them to realize that to kill one innocent person is to kill all mankind. That's what it says in the Quran. But let's not get to the side of the point. This is supposed to be business. So why is, well, this is the notion. You see, buying the world is sort of like the antithesis of Atlas Shrugged. What if Atlas didn't shrug? And Atlas said, wait a minute, what if I get my Atlas friends together and we enterprise together to buy the world out? Now what would we have to pay for it? Well, it's so screwed up, we could buy it at a discount. But all those people are going to say it's against the law for us to buy them out. And they're going to try to vote us out of buying them out. But this is how we do it. We buy them off. We make them shareholders in our enterprise, which is their enterprise. And all we want is our fair share of a big enterprise, and to build our enterprise together, because you'll find that what Atlas really wants is to become a greater Atlas. And to become greater Atlases in the future, we must network our minds. It's no longer a hierarchy, and the hierarchy, it's a network architecture. It's no longer a pyramid of power, it's networks of pyramids of power. It's pyramids of networks of pyramids of power. It's spheres of pyramids of power. It's, well, it's complicated. It would almost need, and it does require, computing technology, potentially even beyond Hal Watson artificial intelligence, that could guide us to making it happen. But I think we could put our minds together and make it happen. But why would it be possible to take the ideals of the right, of free enterprise and liberty and innovation, and tie them to the ideals of the left, of, well, taking care of those who need taking care of, and of making sure that there's an adequate safety net so that we don't have disturbances in our society? And then, okay, so how did those ideas come? Let alone the ideals of unfettered capitalism. And the ideals, well, unfettered capitalism has its problems when it's tied with, Well, Wall Street capitalism, inside of capitalism, which, there is a lot of cheating going on. And it's just a game of trading up and down. It's lost its investment allure, and it's lost much of its purpose for gathering and tying capital to new business formation long ago, and it's become more of like a casino. But this is not an indictment of Wall Street, because if we buy the world, there would be no more Wall Street. There would be no more trading as you know it. Now, how would you do it? Well, see, here's where it ties to communism. Let's say I was tying over to communism in Russia, China, turning a communist nation into a future capitalist nation. What I would do is I would turn it over to a capitalist board, okay? And then and of course there would be board, there would be trusted people that would be there to take care of people's interests, people we could trust. I would trust Bill Gates. He's already made his intention to give his excess wealth over to charity, and I would trust his friend Warren Buffett to be on that board. Would you not trust him? I would trust Steve Jobs to be on that board. So then what would you do? Well, then we'd give everybody shares. You see, let's say China went capitalist. Instead of having the people work for the nations or be citizens of the nations, let the Chinese assets that were once owned by the nation or expropriated at one point in time, let them be redistributed in shares back to the people. But not shares they'd be in electronic accounts, and not shares that could be easily transferred in exchange to somebody that decided to gather up all the shares and become a rich guy by taking advantage of people that decided to sell out the shares. No, you would have sort of like, maybe they could sell some of the shares for some money over time, but the shares would be restricted stock and would be designed to create a dividend stream so that each person would become an investor. Now, also in this scheme, as every citizen consumed, for every consumption of one of our enterprises connected, by the way, all of our transactions are tracked by enterprise through our electronic money, for everything you consume, a profit would be made. When our enterprise of the futures makes a profit, our consumer gets into his account a third of those profits into his retirement account. You see, we create, and maybe we change the numbers, I don't know. The idea is we create a flow, a pyramid, because the key to the wealth pyramid is trickle-up economics. Because if we can make the money trickle up, and by the way, with our own bank, ask Alan Greenspan, my chairman of the business bills, how one World Bank could print money and charge it to the children 100 or 500 or 1,000 years from now. Well, because if you have no future 500 years from now, it's easy to charge them off for a future they don't have. But that's just another point of the story. Anyway, the point is this. Once you have trickle-up economics, the middle class get richer, and then the rich get richer. And then what we need at the top is a notion of the rich, when they get to a maximized amount that might be in our current consciousness as billion, but might be in the short order a trillion, because I imagine that our billionaires might be treated like trillionaires, because when we have a world with all of us working together in common cause in this enterprise, with a common structure of accepted direct democracy. And by the way, it wouldn't just be a democracy. On one side you'd have a vote, and I had a notion, and it might have a better notion, but as a sort of a ratio of 7 political heads, and the only one I named in the beginning got me a quarter of the earth, Hu Jintao, China, and then 10 business bulls, giving business a little more power. But the idea was, on the business side, you would vote your shares. So if you owned a bigger share, you would have more power in the voting of the business guys. But on the political side, everybody would have one person, one vote. So it balances the need of the world. Now, over time, the needs aren't necessarily that different, but you do want those who know the right things to do with money, controlling the money, because they're controlling all of our money if we're invested in one common enterprise of ours. And, well, that's the general notion. And from here on out, well, then why would Steve Jobs be alive? Why would people that you think are dead be alive? Why would we conduct wars when they're not really here? That's part of the story. I'll tell you later.